All right, I need you all to hang on because breaking news over the last 24 hours. Emergency meetings have been called. The White House has summoned all major news networks to the White House immediately. And about what? Alarming reports have surfaced, and the White House needs to assure that the information is disseminated correctly, because they feel it was not, resulting in adverse reactions to many of these major news networks, along with this network you're watching. What is this information? We're going to get that to you rather quickly. What meetings are occurring? We'll tell you that also, and we'll show you the reaction. An article published by Politico that will frame in so much of what's occurring as the White House continues to ratchet down and ensure there is no misinformation concerning COVID-19. That is the basis of what occurred, and one story triggered it all. We'll get there as quickly as we can. As you've now noticed, and what will be now another quintessential example of what can and cannot be spoken of. That is why we created Restricted Republic, to give the parts you can't speak of anymore. You're seeing just a portion of the video catalog flashing up on your screen in order to help you to get over to Restricted Republic. 2 discount codes today. Discount code FREEDOM, $5 a month, 24 months. Again, 14 days for free, or discount code SAVE10 at annual checkout, $10 off the annual subscription, 14 days for free. All subscriptions auto renew, cancel anytime, because you know what we do is we start with the big story of the day. And then we go ahead and extend to the opinions that can't be given, the information that can't be aired, the things that can't be talked about at Restricted Republic later on in the day. We invite you to get over there and see what real news was meant to sound like, as right now we're going to swing back in and cover this major news headline. Published by Politico, and as you see on your screen, White House back channeling with networks on COVID coverage. The press outreach comes amid concern that alarmed coverage may harm the jab campaign that the White House is working so diligently on. CNN had a little bit to say about this
weekend about the White House being frustrated by hyperbolic COVID headlines.
Yeah, Brian, the White House is very frustrated, and they're frankly concerned that the news media is overly focusing on these breakthrough infections and not focusing on the larger issue, which is unvaccinated Americans spreading the coronavirus to their family and friends.
Oliver Darcy has been on the hunt against mainstream media coverage, being again a senior reporter on a mainstream media network, CNN, stating some news in the Reliable Sources newsletter. The White House is frustrated with what officials view as alarmist, and sometimes flat-out misleading coverage about the Delta variant. He was not alone. Ben Wakana, coming out of the White House COVID-19 response team, Deputy Director of Strategic Communication and Engagement, states jab people do not transmit the virus at the same rate as unjabbed people, and if you fail to include that context, you're doing it wrong, referring to this New York Times story, which I'm not sure if we're able to read or not, but nonetheless, you can read it on your own. This is one of the stories that triggered this major reaction from the White House. Politico, reporting on this story, goes on to state the White House began holding a series of briefings Monday and into Tuesday with all major news networks, including Fox News, as well as other newsroom leaders about their recent COVID coverage, according to 3 sources familiar with the meeting. Again, this is focused on the Delta variant, and it is believed these meetings are led in part by the U.S. Surgeon General. The briefings are being held on deep background, which means news organizations can use the material but have to agree not to name or directly quote from senior officials. And come as the administration hits its jab milestone on Monday, with 70% of American adults having now gotten at least 1 shot. But they are also occurring at a moment of concern across the administration over news reports and headlines they view as far too narrowly focused on one side rather than the other. Jabbed people contracting the virus. That is the major cause of concern. So for once, mainstream media is being scolded by the White House, the Biden administration, privately ramping up this outreach to major media outlets in hopes of tamping down a spat of alarming news reports. So the alarming news reports they're referring to are the 4 stories we had covered, resulting in, again, that adverse reaction. So all we'll do is show you the headlines here, and you can see each of the 4 reports and the information the White House is now concerned is alarmist information So the White House calling in all these major media news sources to assure that these storylines are brought back under control. Coming off of this one report, which spurred all this on, which was the background behind the CDC changing their guidance. And you'll see here Politico goes on, but news of the findings come out before the actual data itself. And that is the cause for concern by the White House. How were these articles published prior to the information being released, and who was sourced as the outlet for this information is why the White House says, again, you can report on the generalities of the information, but you cannot provide the sources. But news of the findings, again, came out before the actual data itself, and the early headlines and reports emphasized the number of so-called breakthrough infections. Officials in the administration feared the stories and social media posts promoting them would further hamper their efforts to persuade the unjabbed people to get the shots. So they went ahead and countered this with, again, as we reported on yesterday, White House enlists an army of social media influencers to promote the COVID-19 jab. Politico goes on to state, it's on everyone to get this right, and coverage that mischaracterizes breakthrough infection misses the mark and poses a very real threat of hardening jab hesitancy, a White House official said. We've been closely engaged on this with the outlets covering it, and we're going to continue to do so to ensure that the American people are getting accurate information. That statement coming out of the White House itself, framing up why these emergency meetings have been called, framing up which articles were the originators of this need for these emergency meetings, and what the White House is viewing as critically important and needing to be contended with right now. That, of course, would beg a larger question from many people as to what is the role of these news sources to investigate or simply report on approved storylines. So obviously, folks, this begs some larger questions, and many will ask those questions. What's your opinion? Is the White House warranted in what they're requesting, or are they overreacting to an overabundance of information that's developing so quickly that even these mainstream media news sources may get it wrong occasionally? Well, now they're getting their hands slapped rather aggressively by the White House. So what's your opinion? Very curious to hear it, because I'm about to give you mine. Again, you know I reserve that for a restricted republic because you know we're very careful what can and can't be said. And when the broadcasts sometimes expand onto the things, well, you're not supposed to talk about, which may go to explain further what's going on, I'll make sure I put that at restricted republic. If you haven't joined us there, I certainly hope you will. Most importantly, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and if you want to make sure you're keeping up on the major stories that aren't always what they appear, you know where to find those. You'll find the start here, the big basis and recap of the information, and then we blow it up over at Restricted Republic. I invite you there again. 2 discount codes that you saw earlier always appear below. I can't thank you enough for being here, and until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justus Knight, signing out.